There's a strange exhaustion that lives in the chest of someone who has everything they once wanted and still feels empty. Maybe you know it. The weight of always reaching, always becoming, always proving. What if peace was never at the end of that road? The relentless hunger. You wake up with a list. Not just tasks, a silent inventory of who you should be by now. What you should have accomplished. How much further ahead you thought you'd be. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice whispers, not yet, not enough. Keep going. So you do. You chase the promotion, the relationship, the body, the clarity, the version of yourself that finally feels complete. But here's the truth no one tells you. The feeling of not enough doesn't live in your circumstances. It lives in the chasing itself. The illusion of arrival. We've been taught that peace is a destination. That if we work hard enough, fix enough, become enough, we'll finally arrive at some inner shore where the waves stop crashing, where the mind goes quiet, where we can finally rest. But think about it. How many times have you reached a goal, only to feel the emptiness return a week later? How many times have you said, once I get this, I'll be happy? And then you got it, and the happiness lasted about as long as morning mist. It's not that your goals were wrong. It's that you were looking for peace in them, when peace was never hiding there to begin with. The paradox of effort. There's a Sufi teaching that goes like this. The seeker runs in circles. The finder stands still. And it's maddening, isn't it? Because we've been conditioned to believe that stillness is laziness. That if you're not moving, striving, improving, you're falling behind. But what if the opposite is true? What if every step you take toward peace is actually a step away from it? Because peace isn't something you earn. It's something you remember. The weight you carry. Let's talk about what chasing actually does to you. It rewires your nervous system to live in a perpetual state of not yet. Your body starts to believe that safety lies somewhere ahead, just beyond this project, this milestone, this transformation. So you never fully land. You never fully exhale. Even in moments of rest, part of you is already planning the next move, scanning the horizon, checking the map. You sit down to dinner, but your mind is 3 steps ahead. You lie in bed, but your thoughts are already rehearsing tomorrow's conversations. You're here, but you're not. And the cruelest part, the faster you run, the heavier you feel. Because you're not just carrying your dreams, you're carrying the fear that if you stop, you'll lose everything. The trap of becoming, Alan Watts once said. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. And yet, that's exactly what we do. We spend years constructing an identity out of achievements, opinions, roles, and labels. I'm the successful one. I'm the spiritual one. I'm the one who has it all figured out. And then we spend even more years defending that identity, maintaining it, proving it to the world. But here's the trap. The moment you define yourself, you cage yourself, because now you have to keep being that. Now you have to protect that image, perform that role, chase the evidence that proves you're still that person. And peace. Peace doesn't fit in a cage. The question you're afraid to ask, what if you stop chasing? Not because you gave up, not because you don't care, but because you realized you were never running toward anything. You were running away from the feeling of not being enough. And the moment you stop running, the moment you turn around and face that feeling, something extraordinary happens. It doesn't destroy you. It doesn't confirm your worst fears. It just dissolves. Because the not enough was never real. It was a story. A story you've been carrying like a stone in your pocket, feeling its weight every single day, convinced that if you just run fast enough, you'll finally be able to set it down. But you don't have to run. You can set it down right now. The breath between thoughts. There's a space. A quiet space that exists between the thought, I need to do more, and the thought, I'm falling behind. Most people never notice it, because they're too busy filling it with noise, plans, fears, and fantasies. But that space, that tiny gap of silence, that's where peace lives. Not in the achievement, not in the arrival, but in the pause, in the moment when you stop trying to become, and simply are. The truth you already know, somewhere deep inside, beneath all the conditioning and the hustle and the fear. You already know this. You've felt it before. Maybe it was a morning when you woke up with nowhere to be, and for just a moment, you felt whole. Maybe it was watching the sunset, and suddenly all the urgency melted away. Maybe it was holding someone you loved, and realizing just for a second that this was enough. You've tasted peace before, not because you earned it, but because you stopped chasing it. And that's the great irony. Peace arrives the moment you stop trying to find it. The mirror cracks, so let's sit with the uncomfortable question. Who would you be if you stopped chasing? Not in a year, not after you figure it all out, right now. If you let go of the mental scoreboard, the endless self-improvement projects, the need to prove your worth, what's left. And I know that question terrifies you, because for so long, your identity has been built on the chase. You're the person who's working on themselves, the one who's growing, evolving, becoming, the one who doesn't settle. It's noble. It's admirable. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt like you were enough, just as you are? The stories we tell ourselves, we don't chase randomly. We chase because of the stories we believe. If I achieve this, people will finally respect me. If I fix this part of myself, I'll be worthy of love. If I become disciplined enough, strong enough, successful enough, I'll finally be safe. These stories run deep. Some of them were handed to you by your parents, your culture, your first heartbreak. Others you wrote yourself in moments of pain when you decided that who you were wasn't enough and who you could become might be. And here's the thing about these stories. They're not all lies. Some of them have helped you survive. Some of them have pushed you to grow. But there comes a point when the story that once saved you starts to suffocate you, because you're not chasing goals anymore. You're chasing the feeling of being okay. And you're looking for it in all the wrong places. The hunger that can't be fed, there's a kind of hunger that lives in the human heart. A restless, aching hunger that no achievement, no relationship, no transformation will ever satisfy. Because it's not actually hungry for things. It's hungry for itself, for wholeness, for the return to a state of being that existed before you learned to believe you were broken. You see, somewhere along the way, you internalized a lie, the lie that you are incomplete, that you are a problem to be solved, a project to be finished, a rough draft waiting for the final edit. And that lie set you on a path of endless becoming, always reaching, always striving, always one step away from enough. But the truth, you were never incomplete. You were just convinced that you were. The weight of perfection. Let's talk about the version of yourself you're chasing. The deal you. The one who meditates every morning, eats clean, never procrastinates, always knows the right thing to say. The one who's healed all their trauma, released all their patterns, and radiates effortless peace. Ask yourself, who told you that version of yourself exists? Because here's what no one says. That version of you is a ghost. A beautiful, shimmering ghost that lives just far enough ahead to keep you running, but never close enough to reach. It's not a goal, it's a moving target. And every time you get close, it shifts. The bar raises. The standards tighten. The finish line moves. And you're left exhausted, wondering why you can never quite arrive. The permission you've been waiting for. What if I told you? You don't need to be better to be worthy of peace. You don't need to heal every wound, release every pattern, or transcend every flaw. You don't need to do the work for another decade before you're allowed to rest. You can stop right now. Not because you've given up, but because you've realized the peace you're chasing was never conditional. It was never something you had to earn. It's your birthright. It's the ground beneath the striving, the silence beneath the noise, the stillness you've been running from, because you were afraid it wouldn't be enough. The death of the seeker. There's a Zen story about a student who spent years searching for enlightenment. He traveled to monasteries, studied with masters, meditated in caves, and one day, exhausted, he sat down by a river and said out loud, "I give up. I'll never find it." And in that moment, he did. Not because he became someone new, but because he stopped trying to become anyone at all. The seeker disappeared, and what remained was just presence, just being, just this. What you're really afraid of, let's be honest, you're not afraid of failure. You're afraid that if you stop chasing, you'll discover you were always enough. And if you were always enough, then all that running, all that striving, all those years of self-improvement were just a defense mechanism, a way to avoid the terrifying simplicity of being human, flawed, imperfect, uncertain, and still worthy. The softening. So what happens when you stop? At first, nothing. Just the echo of your own footsteps fading. Just the strange quiet of a mind that's used to noise. But then, slowly, you start to notice things. The way light moves across the wall. The sound of your own breath. The feeling of your body, not as a project, but as a home. You start to realize you've been here the whole time. You've just been too busy running to notice. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that you chased, but that you chased right past the very thing you were looking for. The stillness speaks. There's a moment that comes to everyone who finally stops running. It's quiet, almost uncomfortably so. Because for the first time in years, maybe your whole life you're not planning, performing, or proving. You're just here. And in that stillness, something unexpected happens. The world doesn't fall apart. The ground doesn't disappear beneath you. In fact, it's the opposite. For the first time, you feel solid. Not because you've achieved something, but because you've stopped abandoning yourself. The practice of presence, peace is not a spiritual trophy. It's not the result of a perfect meditation practice or a fully healed inner child. Peace is what remains when you stop arguing with reality. When you stop insisting that this moment should be different. When you stop waiting for your life to begin after this, after you're thinner, richer, wiser, calmer. Presence is the practice of being here. Even when hair isn't perfect, even when your mind is restless, even when your heart is heavy, even when you don't have the answers, especially then, the wisdom of enough. There's an old Taoist saying, those who know they have enough are rich, not because they have everything, but because they've stopped measuring their worth by what they lack. Think about it. How much of your suffering comes from the gap between where you are and where you think you should be? How much energy do you spend trying to close that gap? And what if that gap is imaginary? What if Schuld is just a story? What if right now, exactly as you are, messy and uncertain and unfinished, you are enough? Not in a motivational poster kind of way, but in a deep, cellular, undeniable way. Letting the river carry you in Sufi tradition, there's a concept called tawakkul. It means trust, surrender, letting go of the illusion of control, not passivity, not giving up, but recognizing that you are not separate from life, you are of it. You are the river and the current, the wave and the ocean, and the exhaustion you feel. It comes from trying to swim upstream, from believing that your worth depends on how hard you fight against the flow. But what if you stopped fighting? What if you let yourself be carried? Not recklessly, not blindly, but with the quiet trust that life is not happening to you, it's happening through you. And maybe, just maybe, it knows where it's going. The death of the ego's project, your ego has a plan. It always has. It's been building a version of you that it believes will finally be safe, admired, untouchable. And it's convinced you that peace lies on the other side of that plan. But here's what the ego doesn't tell you. Its plan never ends. There is no final version, no ultimate arrival, because the ego's job is to keep you incomplete, to keep you striving, to keep you believing that you need it. But you don't. You never did. The return to innocence. Do you remember what it felt like to be a child? Before you learned to measure yourself. Before you internalized shame, comparison, or the weight of other people's expectations. There was a time when you simply were. When existence itself was enough. When you didn't need a reason to laugh, to play, to be. You didn't think about your worth. You didn't question whether you deserved to take up space. You just lived. And then, somewhere along the way, you learned to doubt yourself, to judge yourself, to believe that who you are, just as you are, isn't quite enough. And you've been trying to get back ever since. But here's the secret. You don't have to get back anywhere. That innocence, that wholeness never left. It's been here the whole time, waiting beneath the noise. The courage to stop, stopping is terrifying, because stopping feels like quitting, like giving up on your dreams, like admitting defeat. But stopping isn't the same as quitting. Quitting is running away. Stopping is arriving. It's saying, I don't need to become anyone else to be worthy of peace. I don't need to fix myself to deserve love. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, including myself. And that takes more courage than any amount of chasing ever will. The quiet revolution. When you stop chasing, something shifts in the world around you. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, steadily, like the turning of a season. People notice. Not because you're doing more, but because you're being more present, more grounded, more real. You stop performing your life and start living it. You stop trying to be impressive and start being honest. You stop chasing connection and start offering it. And in that space, peace doesn't just arrive for you. It arrives through you. What peace actually feels like, let's be clear about something. Peace isn't bliss. It's not the absence of struggle or discomfort. It's not a permanent state of Zen, like calm. Peace is the deep knowing that you're okay, even when things aren't. It's the ability to sit with uncertainty without collapsing, to feel pain without being destroyed by it, to hold both joy and sorrow in the same breath and not need to choose. Peace is the end of war with yourself. It's the moment you stop trying to be different and you realize exactly this is where life is happening. And you've been here all along, you just forgot. The beginning after the end, so here you are, standing in the middle of your own life, finally still. And maybe for the first time, you're not asking, what's next? You're asking, what's here? And that question changes everything. Because what's next keeps you trapped in the future, in a place that doesn't exist yet, that never will. But what's here brings you home, to this breath, this heartbeat, this irreplaceable, unrepeatable moment. And in this moment, you are whole. The practice of coming home, peace is not a place you arrive at once and stay forever. It's a practice. A return. A gentle remembering again and again that you don't have to leave yourself to find yourself. Here's what that looks like. When your mind starts spinning with plans and fears pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs. Say to yourself, I am here. I am enough. This is it. Not as a mantra to fix yourself, but as a reminder that you were never broken. The gift you give by stopping. When you stop chasing, you don't just change your own life. You give others permission to stop too, because your presence becomes a mirror, a living reminder that it's okay to be human, to be imperfect, to not have it all figured out. And in a world that constantly screams more, better, faster, your stillness is a rebellion, a quiet revolution, a radical act of self-love. The paradox of letting go, here's the beautiful irony. When you stop chasing peace, you find it. When you stop chasing success, you create it naturally. When you stop chasing love, you become it. Because the energy you were spending on chasing, that desperate, grasping, urgent energy, was actually the very thing keeping you from what you wanted. It's like trying to catch a butterfly. The harder you chase, the farther it flies, but sits still, and it lands on your shoulder. What you no longer need, you don't need another course, another book, another guru to tell you who you should become. You don't need to wait until you're healed, enlightened, or perfect. You don't need permission from anyone, not your parents, not your partner, not society, to finally be at peace with yourself. You don't need a reason. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to deserve it. You just need to. Stop running and breathe. The moment is here right now as you're reading this. You have a choice. You can close this, go back to your list, your plans, your endless self-improvement projects. You can keep chasing, or you can stay here, just for a moment, and let yourself be exactly as you are, not working toward anything, not becoming anyone, just being. And in that being, you might notice something, a softness, a spaciousness, a quiet sense of, oh, I'm already here. I've always been here. The universe you've been missing. When you stop chasing, you start noticing. The way morning light slants through the window. The way your coffee tastes when you're actually present for it. The way a stranger's smile can land in your chest and remind you you're not alone. You start hearing the world differently. Not as a background hum while you plan your next move, but as a symphony. Each sound, each breath, each moment alive. And you realize you've been living in a movie of your own making, always rehearsing the next scene. While the real show was happening right here. The wisdom you carry now, you've learned something that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Chasing doesn't work. Not because you're lazy, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because peace was never hiding in the future. It was always here, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the endless, exhausting story that you're not enough. And now that you know this, you can't unknow it, you might forget. You might get swept back into the current of urgency and comparison. But somewhere inside, a seed has been planted, and it will keep calling you home. The last thing you need to hear, this isn't the end. It's not like you'll never chase again. You're human. You'll forget. You'll fall back into old patterns. You'll wake up one day and find yourself running again, heart pounding, mind spinning. And that's okay, because now you know the way back, not to some distant destination, but to here, to this breath, to this body, to this life unfolding exactly as it is. The closing breath, peace arrives when you stop chasing. Not because chasing is wrong, but because peace was never ahead of you. It was always beside you. breathing with you, waiting patiently for you to notice. And now, maybe you have, so take a breath, a real one, deep and slow, and let yourself land right here, right now, in this moment that is already whole, already complete, already enough. You are not a project. You are not a problem. You are a presence. And that presence is peace.